Whitaker Weekly is a 3-episode anime discussion podcast where two brothers discuss a show of their choice. The show can be anything from a current season flop to a decades-old classic. What are they going to talk about next? Who knows? They sure don't. I'm Andrew.
I'm Lee.
And this is Whitaker Weekly, and boy, is it hot right now. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So we've got a little bit of news this week. There's some other news and stuff that kind of popped up, but this is really the only thing that kind of stuck out to me. New Borderlands 3 trailer, and I shared it with you, and it is wild and crazy and wonderful, and hi, Kitty. You know, all sorts of greatness. And it personifies really, really well what Borderlands is.
It basically features, in 3 different instances at least, some people locking themselves arm in arm and spinning around partying while firing a gun out the other arm, shooting everyone around them to the song
So Happy Together.
So Happy Together is made popular by Ernest Goes to Camp. That's where I first heard it.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then as soon as, like, you know, some of the Vault Hunters is what they're called, started dancing and like linking arms and dancing around, my first thought was, oh no, this is how shipping starts.
The first time I watched it, I couldn't watch it all the way through. I got to the point where a bullet was fired from a chamber and a mini psycho was riding it. I'm like, okay, I don't think it's going to progress from this. It's just going to continue to be more of the same.
What do you mean progress? Are you more of the same insanity?
Yes. In terms of a narrative, it didn't progress. It just went to other locations and more craziness.
Oh yeah, no, like I get that. Yeah, it got crazier and crazier though. Yeah, especially at the very end when they are on top of a tower of guns, surrounded by a fountain of guns that has a bunch of chests that are opening up and throwing out gold-plated guns.
It does that.
Yeah, and also at one shot, someone with a much quicker eye than I'm myself, they pointed on YouTube that at a certain time period in the trailer, you could see Handsome Jack's masks. And so that gives me hope that they're somehow going to bring Handsome Jack into Borderlands 3, which is good for me because I absolutely adore Handsome Jack. Okay, so that's and then you found some news and you shared this with me already.
Yes, this passed under our radar, but it came out end of March. It turns out that let's see, where was it? Yeah, Hello Kitty and Gundam crossover in a special collaboration in celebration of Gundam's 40th anniversary and Hello Kitty's 45th anniversary. They did a crossover special. I don't know if it's still airing or what's going on there, but they made announcements that Hello Kitty is getting a new animated series scheduled for release in 2021. It'll be 52 episodes, each one about 11 minutes long, and it's called The World of Hello Kitty. So that's coming out in a couple years. But yeah, I've got a link to an article here from comicbook.com that details some information about this.
Okay. Awesome. That's great. Okay. Well, then let's go ahead and, if that's it for news, let's go ahead and dive right in. This is week 3 of our Americans in Anime month. And we decided to go ahead and watch an anime that, you know what, takes place in America, and probably 90% of the cast is American. And we decided to go ahead and watch Baccano. Baccano, which Narita, the author, translates as stupid commotion, is Italian for ruckus. An ongoing light novel series with over 20 volumes published, it takes place across three eras, the early 1700s, the 1930s, and 2000s. The present and presents its story arcs in what was that? Anachronistic fashion. I got that word wrong last time, but whatever. Anachronistic fashion. Though the arcs have their own stories to tell, they all fit within a grand overarching narrative 3 centuries in the making, with the events in the 1700s still causing shockwaves in 2003. Immortal alchemists, mafioso, camerosti, bootleggers, assassins, and larger-than-life individuals from all walks of life find themselves inexorably swept into the spiral eternal Baccano. All right.
Oh, yeah. So this is one of the few series that the first episode starts with an opening credit sequence.
Yep. And oh boy, what an opening credit series. Just I think the song is called Guns N' Roses. But yeah, that just the big band jazz slap you in the face opening where it introduces all the characters and it introduces them perfectly. We see Isaac and Miria, who are my personal favorite anime couple, by the way, like
yes.
Far and beyond anybody else. They're flipping a coin to see who gets to wear which costume for this store that they're going to be robbing, and they end up running stealing a bunch of chocolates, and it just kind of explodes.
So what actually? So they flip a coin, decide who gets to decide who wears what costume. She ends up dressing up as Santa Claus. He ends up dressing up as a pumpkin-headed monster, a jack-o'-lantern, and they go and rob a candy store. So Santa Claus and the King of Halloween are robbing a candy store, and then in the so then there's a whole bunch of candy bars in a box, and one of them happens to have the title of the show on it, and that's how the show appears. The show title appears. So they get billing before title.
Yeah, because
that's how
they're the best. They are the best, and it's like this opening. Okay, I have probably watched this show 5-6 times, okay, just from start to finish. I adore Baccano. And just so our viewers are aware, sometimes, if those of you who've watched our show before or listened to our show before, sometimes we get lost in the events that happen because we don't really write them down. One of the great things about Baccano is how the story is presented. It's like Memento, where the movie Memento is presented backwards. It starts at the ending and then progresses scene by scene until the beginning of the story.
So after the opening credits start, we're introduced to a couple of characters. One's called, I think, a lieutenant colonel or something. I don't remember his rank, but he's addressed by his rank. And the other one, her name is Alice.
Oh, vice director.
Vice director. Okay.
Vice director is what they call
I knew he was.
Captain.
Okay, so they call him vice director. And the two of them are. She seems to be in a master apprentice sort of situation with him, where she's learning from him the art of information brokering and collecting information and perpetually learning, what's the best way to tell a story, how do we take a look at this. And so the first few scenes of the first episode really is about the two of them discussing what is the best way to tell this story, because there's elements that take place in the 1700s, 1900s, and like who's the main character? Is it this person or this person? Where do we start our story? Should we go chronologically? Should we follow a person's particular story? How should this be told? And the first time I watched it, I couldn't piece it in with everything else, but now that I've seen this twice, it makes so much more sense.
And as I was saying, one of the fascinating things about this show is that those three time periods, the 1700s, the 1930s, and the 2000s, the show splits the story up in between those. And as you progress, like in episode 2, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit here, but in episode 2, Jacuzzi, another one of my favorite characters. I'm going to say that about everybody in this show just because I absolutely adore all the characters. But Jacuzzi is running down the hall and he runs into another character named Lad. Lad curses him out and Jacuzzi's like, "Hey, sorry, I'm sorry, I've got to get going. Please forgive me." And he runs off and Lad says, wait a minute, something like that. Episode 3, we see from Lad's perspective, where we get a bit more story about Lad, see what's going on, and he leaves And I'm not going to say what he's leaving to go do because I want to save that for the episode. But he leaves, and just as he leaves, that's when Jacuzzi runs into him, and then we see what happens afterward from Lad's perspective.
The first time we watched this show, I even recommended that we could sit down and, capture all the footage and then possibly splice it together chronologically and see if the story tracks that way in any way.
Yeah, and I was just like, nah. Let's just leave it as it is. That just sounds like way too much work. But one of the I didn't write Carol and Gustav St. German is his name. Okay. But he is the vice director of the Daily Days newspaper. But anyways, so she is he asks her questions, and he's a much older man, and she is, I don't want to say a lowly. I mean, she very, very much is a lowly, but I don't know how young she is. She obviously works for them, so I think she's an older woman who just looks younger. But
she pouts and behaves like
a child,
like a child.
Yeah.
And so,
but anyways, like after she's like, I think we should start it here because this is where all the events started really unfolding, and this is the first time that we personally encountered this story, which is when we started diving into it. And he's just like, 319 points. Out of how many?
That happens at least twice
in the first episode.
They're only in the first episode. I don't remember seeing them in the other two.
Oh no! I'm just saying, like later on, because we've seen the show. Can you say later on that joke comes back where he's just like, 7 points out of 10? Something like that. So
he'll tell her how many points she got, but won't tell her what the grading scale was. Many.
Anyways, so he's like, okay,
so she picks. Start. Yeah. So he makes recommendations of who should be where they should tell the story, and she says, "Well, how about this guy? He's main character-ish." And she picks out Firo.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start following.
It's Firo. Obvious that she's picking him because she thinks he's cute, because she's blushing while she's looking at the picture, and she's got kind of a sly grin. But he's like, main character-ish, and she kind of explains, like why he's main character-ish. And he's like, well, should we start with that? I mean, yes, that's important, but what about these two here? What about these two? What about the two thieves? And then it shows Isaac and Miriam. What about, what about the boat that came to America, that crossed the Atlantic in the 1700s? What if we were to start there? And he's explaining to her that, and this is something that's incredibly important also as a writer, that a writer and a storyteller needs to learn. The perspective completely changes how the story is presented and really kind of what the story means. You have to have the right perspective for that story, and that's what he's teaching her. He's like, what about this character? What about this character? What about this character? All right, well, and what about Lad Russo, who is there? What about this person? And then she's like, well, what about us? I mean, we're the ones who are telling the story, right? And then he just kind of turns to the camera and grins, and then boom, title card.
What's the title of the episode?
The vice president doesn't say anything about the possibility of him being the main character.
That's the title of the episode.
That's the title of episode 1.
Yeah.
So after she proposes that it should be Firo, though, we get to a scene that we both wrote about, and like there's this beggar in the streets asking for money, and
Firo pulls out his wallet and puts a couple bills into his, and this is happening during Depression era USA, 1930s. So
that money can last him quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, here, I'm feeling generous, and he gives him, a couple bucks. And the guy's like, oh, thank you. Here, I have something for you. Let me give you, these are some flowers I picked earlier. He's like, oh, no, I don't need that. And Firo's just kind of walking off. And the guy's like, no, I insist. Please take these flowers in the name of God. And he pulls out this knife and rushes Firo. And what does Firo do?
Firo instinctively grabs the weapon behind him without checking it first and ends up losing his ring and pinky finger right at the
whatever this joint is.
Yep. Yeah. And then his middle finger's cut pretty deep too, through to the bone.
It's a pretty sharp knife.
And so it's a pretty graphic little scene here. So it's not for the faint of heart.
Oh yeah, no, this show is definitely MA. Like this show, do not watch it unless you're older or you're okay with more animated violence.
Yeah.
There's not like any real sex in this. There's some romance. There's
Mm-hmm.
some weird romance. There's some comedic, a lot of comedy in this show. But yeah, it is graphic. So
Yeah. But yeah, then but Firo's fingers fall to the ground and there's a whole bunch of blood. And then you
mhm,
see the blood on the guy's knife starts to
mhm,
pull away from his knife.
mhm,
And then they see that his fingers and the blood on the ground start to float back up.
mhm,
And his hand completely reattaches itself and heals itself. And he turns to face the mugger. And the mugger calls him a monster. Like, what?
mhm. And he's just like, what did you watch it in English? Because I watched it in Japanese. It was actually my first time watching it in Japanese, just because the dub's so good.
I watched it in Japanese.
Okay. But yeah, he pretty much just says, you realize that my name is Firo so and so, and I'm with the
I'm with this crime gang.
I'm with the I think it's the Martello. Yeah, he's with the Martellos. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So he's with the Martellos. So he's like, I'm with the Martellos, and he just punches the guy out. Yeah, it's a great introduction to who that character is. But then we see, we start learning that there's a lot more to these mobsters than meets the eye.
It's true.
Let's see, what did I write down next? Because I wrote down almost practically everything. Okay, no, I stopped writing things down after 3 bits of episode 1. But also, the episode started off with Isaac and Miriam. We don't really know who they are yet, because they haven't really been introduced yet. But he gets his ear cut with a lance, or like with a spear.
Yes.
Spear with a crossguard. And
it's just this quick little shot, as I think it was one of the montages of just one of the little clips that comes up as the vice director is talking to Carol about
he gets his ear cut, and Miriam comes over and says, "Oh my goodness, that's horrible. It's bleeding so badly." And then we'll get back to that later. But long story short, well, I guess not really long story short, but we've seen some mobsters. I know, too late. Some mobsters are trying to take down the Martellos and the Gandors.
I watched Clue with my family, and to make a long story short, too late. It's a running gag.
Yeah. So this other mobster, I think it's the Gondors. They want to take out the Martellos and the not the Gondors, my bad.
Well, the Gondors are a family. It was
Runatora.
Yeah.
The Runatoras. They want, or the Runoradas. The Runoradas. They want to take down the Gondors and the Martellos and move on their territory. They're like, they're small time. We can take them. Well, they sent some guys to go ahead and mow down Luck Gandor, who's one of the executives of the Gondors, and then Firo just happens to be there at the same time. They're talking. Luck is reading a poem from Edgar Allan Poe that terrified him as a child, but ever since that incident a year ago, he says, it hasn't bothered me any longer. And
then shortly thereafter, they talk about friends of theirs are coming in by train, and they're going to want to meet up with them. And suddenly the mob is gunning down the bookstore that they're in.
Yeah. And they're really excited about seeing the people coming in on the train.
Well, they mentioned it's Isaac and Miria.
Isaac, Miria. There's also Firo.
I thought Firo was in the
sorry, not Firo. My bad. I'm trying to remember who it is.
Now, did they talk about Jacuzzi? But he was
these guys don't know Jacuzzi. These guys don't know Jacuzzi yet. It's
they drop a couple names of who else is in the train.
A friend of Miza's who is a friend of Miza's who is a friend of Firo's is also coming in.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember. They also name a couple of other people. I'm just not remembering their names, and I'm not seeing them written down here. I mean, I know who they are. But I don't want to spoil anything, because spoiling things is not what I like to do. Anyways, so they They meet their friends after a long time. The friends come up on the train. They have a nice reunion and stuff like that.
Well, they get
Oh,
gunned
that's right. They
down,
get gunned
and
down. We kind of washed over that, didn't we? Yeah.
they get gunned down, and they get back up and then beat up the guys that gunned them down.
Mm-hmm. Oh, like it's amazing how it's done in the show too, because you just hear it from the perspective of the bookstore owner, because he got down behind his desk his desk as soon as the first gunshot went off. So you just hear a thud, and he gets up and he's just like, "What? What happened? What happened?"
And then a hand pops out of a pile of books that have been shot to death.
Mm-hmm. and it's luck. It's luck.
It's like, but
and I shared it with you earlier, but Luck is the same voice actor who played I can't remember what his name is, but he's the guy from
he's the guy with the glasses in Nisekoi who doesn't believe the relationship's happening, so he's always stalking them.
He always stalked them, always. Like he would watch them from the tree at school, right outside the classroom window.
Yep.
Oh gosh, Nisekoi. So, okay. Anyways, yeah. But Luck and Furo recover in seconds, like nothing happened. And
it's actually kind of funny watching Furo having bullet holes all through his clothes and not a drop of blood on them.
Yeah, yeah.
Running out the bookstore door, landing on top of the car that they had driven up in, and just belting some guy in the face.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Him so hard.
Yeah, kicking him in the face and then just kind of throwing him in.
Then dragging the car drives off, not knowing what to do now.
Yeah. Before this, though, there's this great scene where a member of the Runorada family has been captured by the Gondors.
Oh, yes.
And he is getting kicked to death by one of the Gondors, the bigger of the four. And he's saying, like, where's the bravery you had when you gunned down our people, huh? Because they had just attacked one of their gambling parlors. And he looks up after he hears the guy getting kicked, looks up after he hears a voice, and he sees Luck alive and well. And this is before we saw the scene we just talked about. And he's like, "No, that's impossible." And Luck's just like, "What's the matter?
You look like you've seen a ghost.
You look like you've seen a ghost." And he's just like, "Hey, Chico," or whatever he says the guy's name is.
Chick, yeah.
Yeah, Cheek. We got a guy out here who you need to work on, huh? And he comes out, "Oh, yeah, sure. It's just the previous guy. His stuff is still everywhere. So
it's going to hurt a lot more.
So it's going to hurt a whole lot more." And then he pulls out these scissors. Like he closes the door before he does. He pulls these scissors by, and they're just covered in blood. And the guy who was just getting kicked looks in and sees the corpse of one of his comrades. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think it's the guy that Furo helped them capture just then. So I think that's another instance of flashback, flash forward in the same episode. Because it looked like it had the same hair color, same kind of, thicker build, a chubbier guy. So I think that's who that was. But anyways, right. Yeah. So we then get to the train. And he talks about maybe we should just start with the Flying Pussyfoot, which is the name of the train that people are on. And yes, that's a ridiculous name. Get all your giggles out now. We're probably going to say it a lot. But anyways, and he talks about the crazy things that happened on the Flying Pussyfoot that were supposed to be covered up.
There are, as near as we can figure, 4 or 5 different groups of people on the Flying Pussyfoot. Mm-hmm. They include Lad's gang, who are all dressed in white suits.
Mm-hmm.
A group of assassins calling themselves Ghosts that were all dressed in black suits and carrying musical instrument cases. We have Jacuzzi's group. We have the Conductors. Which include a young conductor who's eager and likes telling ghost stories, an old conductor who's in cahoots, as we find out, with the ghosts. With the ghosts. The elderly conductor, who this is his last time.
Yeah, because that's not a flag.
One more train trip to retirement.
I've already told him that I'm retiring after this last round trip. Yeah. Anyways,
and then and um and then Miriam had
Isaac and
okay, so
Miriam.
Isaac and Miriam, and they did a thing before getting on the train that we're going to talk
Mhm.
about.
Yeah,
Um,
but and
and
that
then there's a senator's wife and daughter, and then a little boy,
was
and that
traveling
little
with them.
is traveling with them. And so it's all kind of very interesting. And we actually, in the opening montage, we see the little boy's head getting blown off by
Lad.
Lad. And then in like the end scene of the first episode, we see his head regenerate and go,
Hmm.
oh, this is such a bother.
He's like, what a useless buffoon, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did get kind of ahead of ourselves describing who's all going to be on the train, but episode 2 starts off with this old man talking about this train, and they're talking about in episode 1 feels like, man, I really want to see the flying pussyfoot, and then Innes, a friend of his, who is actually a pretty key player in the story, she says, "Oh, well, they just said that that they had to change cars because of some incident." And Sophia was like, "Oh man," but anyways, before we
We
skipped
skipped over some.
over what
I
happened with the spear.
yes. So
Yeah,
Isaac is
that's
covering his
before the end
ear.
of episode
Yeah.
1.
And
Yeah,
before episode 1 ends, Isaac's covering his ear and then realizes it doesn't hurt anymore. And Miriam looks at it. Isaac, your injuries disappeared. That's an amazing trick. Maybe doves will appear next.
maybe
So,
doves will appear next.
so
Yeah,
she's waiting for birds to fly out
yeah.
of his
She's
ear.
actually looking at his ear, trying to see if birds coming out.
These are the
What a
people
neat
that we're dealing
magic
with.
trick. Anyways, so that little bit happened in episode 1. So episode 2 starts off. This old man's talking about the flying pussyfoot, and he's there with his little old wife, and he's talking about how it's an extravagant train. It's almost gaudy, but it's kind of a throwback to a bygone era. It's a steam. It's one of the last steam trains out there, and so people still ride it just for that. And just as he's about to get on, his wife just says, "Hold on, we need to leave. We can't be on this train. We've got to go." He's like, "Wait, what do you mean? Do you mean is your sixth sense acting up?" She's like, "It's never been wrong. Something horrible is going to happen on this train, and the only people who are going to survive are either incredibly lucky or not human." And then title card, setting the old woman's qualms aside, the flying pussyfoot departs. Another fantastic title. Uh, anyways,
That's kind of a throwback to the old days of anime where titles were complete sentences.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
That sometimes those titles gave away what happened in the episode.
Dragon Ball Z, every single episode was giving away what was going to happen in the title.
Yeah,
Every single time. All right.
but you didn't care
You
because you had to
still.
see how they were going to do what they did.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Don't do
Anyways,
what they. Go ahead.
we
Go ahead.
then get. Uh, so after the title card, it then takes us to California, 1930.
Mhm.
Okay, and inside of that, and then it zooms up on a mountain, and then zooms up on a cave, and in that cave we hear the voices of Isaac and Miria. And real fast, I want to go ahead and grab the light novel for Volume 2 and read to you the opening line for Volume 2. I'll be right back.
Yes, please. He's shared this with me before, and it is totally worth it. So. So while we're waiting for him, he's actually lent me the DVD here, the Baccano complete season to watch because we couldn't find it on a streaming service. So we won't be able to link you guys out to uh, to a place to watch this. I swear we watched it on Netflix ages ago, but it's not there right now. But we'll go ahead and we'll see it again soon. All right.
What were you just talking about?
I was just telling him about how Baccano isn't on a streaming service at the moment.
Oh, yeah, no, if they want to watch it, they're going to have to purchase it. Yep. Which is unfortunate, but it's totally worth purchasing. It's incredible. So here's Volume 2 of the light novel series. It's not the first chapter, but it's it's Prologue 1, Consumed Bandits. The curtain rose on this crazy ruckus with one dumb sentence from a moron. Let's do a train robbery. I hear those pay well. Another moron agreed with that moron's moronic remark. Wow, that's terrific. We'll be rich. So, yeah, Isaac and Miriam. Anyways, so it cuts in on Isaac and Miriam, and Isaac and Miriam are in a cave, and Miriam's just like, Isaac, can you explain to me again why we're in California? You know, he's like, oh, well, that's simple. We're here to go ahead and get gold. We're going to rob the earth itself. We're going to go down in history as the most famous people in the world because nobody else has ever thought of robbing the earth before. And Miriam's like, oh, so that's why we're here mining? Exactly. Yes, let's get started. And then they bring their picks down and then boom, 5 months later.
Now, I'll be honest with you. That actually reminded me of a scene that's in... I watched a blooper reel for Supernatural. It was an improvised scene where apparently they had to go through 18 inches of concrete with pickaxes for whatever reason. And what happens is the first guy takes the first swing and rubble hits him in the eye.
Oh,
and his acting partner goes, goggles. and so they kept that shot in the show, and they had to get them safety goggles for the remainder of that scene. And so watching these two with pickaxes without goggles, or any kind of safety equipment whatsoever,
so
including it gets to the point where she's in her underwear.
Yeah. I mean,
with a pickaxe, there's no safety whatsoever.
5 months pass. They're 5 months pass. They're still digging. They found nothing. And Miriam's like, "Hey, Isaac, why are we doing this again when most other people are getting gold from the rivers?" And Isaac's just like, "Well, because those people are foolish, you know." And he, you know, I don't want to say spins another tale to keep her occupied, but, you know, entertains her, and they decide to go ahead and keep going, and then
they're
boop.
Both equally dumb. But the thing is, it cuts to the outside, and I swear the shot is the cave that they're mining in, and then their encampment just outside of it, including a mailbox with their name on it.
Yeah, there's a mailbox with their name on it now. Isaac and Miriam.
But it goes out a little bit further, and there's a river, and there are gold nuggets on the side of the river. And then it jumps. Then it jumps 4 months later, and those gold nuggets are gone
because someone else got them.
And it's fall.
Jeez. Yeah. Well, yeah. It's another 4 months later, and they're in there, and Miria has a letter, and she starts reading it, and it's from Enos, the girl that we talked about before. And she starts talking about them, how she sees them as like asking them how they're doing, saying that she misses them, and that she doesn't all of the people who were made before her, kind of pointing a hint at what Enos really is, are gone. So she doesn't have any actual family. So she views Isaac and Miria as her brother and sister, and that gets them both because they're both they're idiots, but they're wonderful people. Like as they're reading, and like Miria is reading the letter, and one of the first things that it says is, since your gold digging prospects have not produced any rewards, why don't you come visit me in New York? You know, just like blunt, straight, you guys are wasting your time, come on home type thing, you know?
Yeah.
And after they read the part about her, the people who came before her are gone, Miriam gets depressed and is like, does that mean her family's dead? And Isaac comes over and says, no, that's not what that means. That's and he looks at it, before gone. Oh, what this means is that Enos wants a younger sibling. Oh, that's wonderful. But how are we going to give her a younger sibling? Well, I don't know. That's not something that we can just do for her. And Isaac is now leaning against the hammock, and Miriam is sitting on the hammock. Miriam does a backflip, rolls off the hammock, comes up underneath it, and as they're discussing what to do, they are both bouncing back and forth off the hammock one by one. Just how in sync these two are with each other is an absolutely incredible thing. Uh, anyways, they decide that they're going to go ahead and go visit their dear friend Ines, but they want to give her a souvenir because they can't give her a kid. They can't give her a younger sibling. So
they decide they're going to.
So they decide, we're like, well, how? We don't have any money. Oh, well, how about a train robbery? I hear those pay well.
So, what's a train robbery? A train robbery is when you ride a train to a place, rob it, and then ride the train away, right?
Yeah.
And then Miriam
Miriam
thinks about it, and then just gives him the pure thumbs up of, yes, you are absolutely right.
Yep. And then they decide, they ride the train and they go to Chicago. They go from California to Chicago because the Flying Pussyfoot goes from Chicago to New York. And they get on this train. Well, there's this little old man sitting outside of a store listening to a baseball game. And as he listens to this baseball game, they're talking about how a runner's gone up to bat, and suddenly this runner has hit a home run. And he looks up and he sees Isaac in a baseball uniform hitting a mafioso in the head with a baseball bat, grabbing bags of money. Miria does the same thing to someone else, grabs other bags of money, and they all just run off. And then they go to the train station to make their getaway on their train. Because that's a train robbery. They get on a train, go to where they need to go, rob someone, and then use a train as their getaway.
Now, when they conduct the robbery, there was this old guy listening to a baseball.
Yeah, I just mentioned that. I don't know. Sorry, those of you who are listening, like, for some reason when we record this, it turns out just fine in the recording, but it buffers from time to time.
Sometimes, but no, in this instance, I was distracted by something else. This news just came in. There is a fire at the Kyoto Animation Studio.
Oh no!
30 injured, and apparently was started by somebody.
Oh,
and they have a man in custody.
Horrible. Well, good. And gosh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's trending on Twitter right now. Is people bringing that up in our community?
Well, we'll go ahead and put in links to places where they can donate money to go ahead and help, or anything we learn about that. We'll put links in the doobly-doo down below for the video. Because there's not really much we can do right now at this moment. But let's go ahead and keep going. That's horrible, though.
Yeah. Anyways, so back to the story. Isaac and Miria just robbed a bunch of mafioso with baseball bats while wearing baseball uniforms.
And they get to the train station, and now they're dressed up as a cowboy
and a lady in red.
And she's like a showgirl from that time era. And they get to the train, and they're so enamored with this beautiful train, and they start seeing all these groups. They see, we talked about before, the guys who call themselves the ghosts, or who are disguised as magicians, and they're like, that's an orchestra. Musicians. That's an orchestra. Yeah, that's incredible. Look how black they are. Like, those must be their instruments. They must, it's Bach in there. It's Bach.
Mozart.
It's Mozart. Yeah. And they look over, and they see Lad's group, and Lad's group is all dressed in white, and Lad's talking about how wonderfully horrible things are going to be on this train. Isaac and Mary don't hear him, and so they think, oh, this guy, there must be a wedding or something on the train. This is going to be the best train ride ever. And so they get on the train, and they get on the train with Jacuzzi Splot's gang.
And Jacuzzi's sitting there, and they're clearly talking about some kind of heist, and he is incredibly anxious and nervous about the whole situation with this heist. Everything all right?
I just broke the wheel of my chair.
Wild.
Huh. Okay. Anyway. I was just trying to move forward a bit and decided to snap. But these things are old, so...
They are. We've had them since, 20 years now?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds about right. But no, yeah. What happened? But no, they get on the train. Jacuzzi's gang is talking about, and Jacuzzi's gang is very interesting looking because the Jacuzzi is this looks like a young man with a incredibly brutal tattoo across his face.
Mm-hmm.
With,
Mm-hmm.
but it's yeah.
He looks like he should be an intense gangster with a tattoo like that on his face, but he is a nervous wreck. He's always just like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? It's like a jacuzzi. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. But what if this happens? Jacuzzi. Don't worry about it.
And the people trying to tell him not to worry are the rest of his gang, which includes a shorter, tough, a huge muscle, and nice. The
Nice.
or Nisei.
It's nice. Or no, it's they. Well, in English, it's written as niece or as nice, but they say niece in Japanese, and they also say niece in English as well. So
Okay.
niece is what I like to call
Nice
her.
spelled Nise.
Nice. Yep.
Nice. Yes.
Yep.
And she's an interesting character because she's wearing glasses and an eye patch and has burn marks all over her body.
Yeah, she's got scars all over her body.
And when you watch the show, you find out why. I'm not going to spoil it, but but it is one of the most intense scenes in anime that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of anime, and wow, yeah, like even now, I just see that scene, and it's like, oh gosh,
you hear it.
It's rough. It's just rough.
You hear it, and so watch this show, and you'll find out
absolutely
what we're talking
incredible
about.
Absolutely incredible voice
work.
acting.
Yes.
I wonder. Colleen Clickenbeard is the name of the voice actress in English. She did an incredible job. So
yeah.
Okay.
Well, Clickenbeard. I know that name. What else? Let me look her up real quick. Go ahead and keep talking about.
Okay. But so they convince Jacuzzi to get on the train, and kind of moving things along here. It gets to night, and Jacuzzi's gang, they are on the oh, there's also the conductors. We should all talk about the conductors. There's a young conductor with red hair, and he's excited about finally being able to be on the Flying Pussyfoot. And the older conductor says, "Hey, we need to." He's like, "Hey, well, I'm glad you're going to enjoy it because it's good. Like I'm retiring, so you're probably going to be taking my place," type thing. And then as the old man walks off, the old man gets ambushed and killed by one of Lad's boys, and Lad's boys celebrates that they have a celebrate that they have a they have a conductor uniform. Sorry.
Okay. Back to Colleen Clickenbeard.
Uh-huh.
She's Risa Hawkeye in the English Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Okay.
Which means that she's also she's Haruhi in Ouran High School Host Club.
Okay.
And she also listed here as Akito Soma in Fruits Basket.
Okay.
The 2019 version.
Wow, awesome.
And Momo in My Hero Academia.
She's Luffy.
Oh.
She's Luffy in One Piece. Anyways, yeah, she's also in Mushishi. She's in Claymore, Witchblade.
Huge list.
Yeah, she's Romeo X Juliet, which I heard is also great.
Yeah, her IMDb page lists 213 voice acting works, or just acting work in general.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Sorry. Have you ever seen Soul Eater?
I've watched the first episode and a half. I want to say I haven't gotten really into it.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a whole lot of fun. She is Marie Mjolnir. Who's one of the instructors. She turns obviously. I'm pretty sure she turns into a hammer
with that name like that, and if she doesn't, it's bad. Bad character design.
Or she. Yeah, she's a weapon. That's right. She is a weapon, and she partnered with Frank and Stein for a long time.
which is another instructor, which I'm sure is the one with all those bolts sticking out of his neck.
Yep. And yeah, I need to read the manga because the manga goes in apparently in completely different directions than the anime.
Which again reminds me of that meme from the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, where it's um, James Franco having a rope around his neck, standing next to somebody else who's crying with a rope around his neck, like first time. And the caption reads, "Game of Thrones fans, anime fans," about having the creators of the showrunners having to go in a different direction from the source material, because the source material wasn't done when they started.
Yeah, she's in Escaflowne.
As she's not Hitomi, is she?
No. She's
is she
Milerna? She's Milerna. She's the younger princess.
Younger princess. Is she the one that was in love with Alan Shazar and was jealous of her for a while?
Yes. She's the one who's she's the one who is engaged to the merchant. But yeah, she's in love with Alan. Yeah. I'll send you a picture of her. But okay. Yeah, she's Momo in My Hero Academia.
Yes.
Rich girl. Holy cow! Did you say that? I must have not caught that.
I said Momo, but you might not have caught who that means.
Yeah. Anyways, we're not talking about her. She's an overlord. Okay.
Yes.
I
didn't recognize the name.
Well, let's look it up. Oh, she's the beefy blonde woman in that adventurer group.
The one that gets the one that tries to raid the
No. Do you remember
I'll look her up.
The ones in red armor that help fight against the demonic invasion at the end of season 2?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, she's the giant woman out of that group.
Okay.
The group that's friends with the girl with the mask who falls in love with one of the demons and doesn't realize it. So anyway, anyways, yeah. Wow, what a career she has. That's incredible, just all the stuff that she's done. So anyway, back to where we were.
So many beloved characters. And that's true with a lot of voice actors. A lot of voice actors get in and then they get their hands on so many tasty characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Isaac has a silly definition of a train robbery, robs some guys, goes and gets on a train, and then the train departs.
Yeah, train departs, and we get to the dining car, and Jacuzzi. We get to the dining car after everybody's on the train. The conductor's died, and one of the guys from Lad's group, the Russos, it now has that uniform. Jacuzzi is sitting next to Nice. And 2 of Jacuzzi's gang members are already employed on the train. And they're there to steal something. They don't know what it is, but they're there to steal something. One of them says that actually it's an explosive. And he's like, wait, what? No. Why is it an explosive? Why are we stealing an explosive? No, maybe it's not an explosive. No, I've confirmed it. It's an explosive. Why are we stealing an explosive? And he's Jacuzzi. He freaks out over everything. And
the rest of his gang totally understands.
Yeah, there's an extremely good reason for it. And that's unfortunately not explained until later, so we're not going to get into it. But Jacuzzi might, like, Isaac and Miriam are probably my favorite couple in all of anime, like I said before. Mm-hmm. Individual characters, Jacuzzi ranks up there in my top 5. Okay? I love Jacuzzi Splot. He's just an incredible character.
But if Isaac and Miriam get first billing in the opening credits, Jacuzzi and Nice get final billing.
They do. It ends with Jacuzzi and Nice. Mm-hmm.
Running from an explosion, holding hands.
An explosion that Nice caused and is laughing the entire time while Jacuzzi is flipping out. Because that's Jacuzzi.
It's not established. Well, it's established in a throwaway line that Nice is a explosives beast.
Yeah.
And so we find out that she's a demolitions expert.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of the scars on her body start to become a little bit more suspect.
Just a tad. Anyways, So yeah, she's an explosives expert. But Jacuzzi's flipping out, and they look over there, and he's like, "Those two people, they've been ordering nothing but Chinese food. What's wrong with them?" And he looks over, and it's Isaac and Miriam having the time of their lives, ordering all this weird Chinese food and eating it, and just freaking out over how amazing it is. Like they have a bowl of noodles in front of them, and at the exact same time, they pull out these massive egg rolls that are bigger than their heads.
They're loving it, and they're
just like,
they're like,
go talk,
it's
Jacuzzi. Just go
fantastic.
talk to them.
It's
Maybe they're
all
nice,
you
normal
can
people.
eat.
No, I shouldn't do it. No, Jacuzzi, just go talk to them. It's all you can eat. No, it's not all you can eat.
Yeah,
they have to pay for
that's
it.
what I was getting to.
Yeah,
The cook is sitting there like it's really not.
it's not. It's not all you can. No, no, it's not. It's
But
great. It's wonderful.
but yeah, they have enough money, they can pay for it.
Oh yeah, they're loaded for the next little while, anyways. So uh Nice finally encourages Jacuzzi to go over, and one of the guys is like, "Man, Nice is really being mean to Jacuzzi right now," and they're like, Nice is like, "No, I just want him to be, a little bit more social." And so he goes over and he ends up talking to them, and they freak him out a little bit at first. And she's like, "Well, look at them. They're really good-looking people. They might be Hollywood stars. I mean, for all you know, you could end up a movie star if you make friends with them." And so sends him over. And the very first thing, they're like, "Wait a minute. Are you a movie star? You're incredibly attractive. You're also mysterious." Just pointing out all these things about Jacuzzi. Just and that's one of the things that I wrote down, because Jacuzzi starts smiling and he starts getting along with them and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One of the Amiria so much is that they spread happiness wherever they go, and that's actually one of the names of one of the episodes. Let me find it here real fast. Isaac and Miria unintentionally spread happiness around them. They just do it because of who they are, and it's wonderful to see them just uplift people by being who they are. It's incredible.
That would be episode 8.
Yep, episode 8. Yep. Anyways, Claire, that's the name of the guy. The guy who Luke was waiting, or Luck was waiting for. Like their fifth brother. Like there's 4 brothers, and then he was their best friend and hung out with him, so they consider him the 5th brother. Anyways,
anyway, so as they're talking, so as Isaac and Miria are talking to Jacuzzi and Nice, eventually it starts getting to this scary story. Like, but there's one thing that can ruin all of our fun.
The rail
tracer.
And both suddenly, Isaac and Miriam, boom.
Like Miriam, apparently, we find out at the end of the story, has never heard the story before.
Yeah, but she is perfectly in sync with him.
She goes into character of like, this is so grim and serious, so I'm going to put on my grim and serious face. And then the lighting changes, and it's all red tones.
The rail tracer. And they start telling the story about the rail tracer, and then it cuts to the back of the train where we see the young conductor talking to another older conductor who was there at the beginning as well, about the rail tracer. They're telling the same story. And the rail tracer, in short, is just it's a monster that that hunts on the railroads. And
and if anybody ever mentions it on a train, it will find that train, it will start eating the people from the back of the car and then work its way to the front. And if it makes it all the way to the front, then the train completely disappears.
But there's only one way to save yourself if the rail tracer comes to prevent the rail tracer from coming to your train. Well, what is it? And at this point, Nice has even gotten into the story. She's like, wait, no, what is it? What's the way we can stop this? And Isaac and Miriam were just like,
well, Isaac doesn't remember, and he asked
to stop the rail tracer.
Oh, I don't know. I've never heard the story.
Yeah, I don't remember. Hey, Miria, do you? This is the first time I've heard this story.
Yes.
So, yeah, and
so like, well. And so the chef says,
I heard it from
the chef says,
oh, that's right,
that he's overheard the young redheaded conductor telling that story too. And so Jacuzzi, deciding he has to know what the end of the story is, so to save the train from the rail tracer, runs to the back of the train to talk to the
Mm-hmm.
conductor to find out what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
or
And
front of
this
the.
is this is when we hear we kind of talked about this before when we were talking about episode 1, how this is when like the story really kind of splices up and kind of shows you different scenes from different perspectives. um and that actually might be where I got the idea for it in my own writing, because I do that in my debut novel, the Devil from the River, where I'll tell the same scene from different perspectives here and there throughout the story. And I'm pretty sure I got that idea actually from watching Baccano, because I just loved how they did that.
Mm.
But this
Now, I
so
love how
mhm,
another movie that kind of does the same thing a little bit
mhm,
is The Fifth Element, where they'll have sentences finished
mhm,
by other people across the galaxy, but it's a continuous
mhm.
thought.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's yeah, they did do that in Fifth Element. But they also shoot, what, it was an incredible movie. I'm trying to remember what it was titled, but it was a movie where it was told the story from one person's perspective, and then it started over.
Rashomon,
What was that?
Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon.
No, it was not Rashomon, but I think it was inspired by Rashomon. But it was this was an American movie, and it had to do with it, like one of the characters was the president, and the president got assassinated, and then it turns out that was a body double for the president.
Oh yes, yes, that was. I remember. I remember that they would that
The
this
name
movie.
the name
Yeah, the
that's coming to mind
name's
is Valkyrie, but that's not Valkyrie. Is the story about when
no.
they tried to assassinate Hitler?
Yes. Yeah, no, this one was something else, and I remember it that it was a lot of
It was
different things
incredible. I
happening.
loved it. I loved it. But again, they do that incredibly well here in Baccano.
Mm,
And in so he's running down the hall, and he runs down the hall, and he runs into Lad as Lad opens up the door.
uh-huh.
And then he goes down, and the uh, the other conductor, right before the young conductor is able to say the only way you can stop the rail tracer from coming to get you, the other conductor interrupts him and tells him a story about this group of people that are ghosts, and how it's their job to try to free their master from prison, Master Huey from prison, so they can become immortals like Master Huey. And anybody who hears this story dies. There's no saving them from it. And he looks at him, and he now has crazy look in his eyes, and he's like been flashing a light
Like
to
we said
signal the
before,
ghosts on the train.
like we said before
Mm-hmm.
that the main that there is a senator's wife and daughter on the train,
Mm-hmm.
and part of his story was telling how there was a how holding them hostage
Mm-hmm.
on this train was part of the plan. And so they're one of the reasons that this group is there. They're the reason this group is on this train.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then what? And then yeah, he pulls the gun on the young conductor, and
Yep. And he pulls the gun on
and
the young
boom,
conductor.
end of episode.
End of episode, gunshot right at that same time. So it's a gunshot that signals as scene change, end card, end of episode.
Yep.
And then the next episode, and I didn't notice this, but I know, well, I think I noticed it in episode 2, but I didn't write it down. But in episode 3, I was just again watching the OP, because this is a show where I will never skip the OP because of how incredible it is.
And the
They
OP
the OP puts
starts putting content in the middle of it.
uh-huh. That's what I was just about to point out.
Yeah.
It puts in the last time in the OP. So
Now I'm
before the
watching.
OP's over, you're already caught up on what happened in the last episode. Boom, let's get into the action.
Now I'm watching your DVD set,
Uh-huh.
and on the DVD set that you have,
It's got a marathon mode, right?
it does, and what it does is it skips a portion of the OP until it gets to the content that has been added to
Mhm.
it.
See, I I'm usually okay with the marathon mode. I think that's great. This show, I am never, ever, ever gonna skip watching
It's so you have to
the
go back.
OP.
So the
Mhm.
problem is there's 6 episodes per disc, and you'll have to go back to the main menu and start every episode individually to make that happen, to make sure you don't miss
Mhm.
the OP on this
Um,
show on your DVD
yeah.
set.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, okay. So the next episode kind of opens up with it says 1932, and these two gangsters go into a newsroom that doubles as an information
Hmm.
brokerage. And this guy, you know, you've seen this posture in Zelda games where somebody's kind of rubbing their hands together as they're expecting to make some money off of whoever's come in. Um, and so the manager there talks to them and says, "Okay, you want this information?" They're asking about the whereabouts of a certain person, and he says, "Oh, you want that information? That'll be $500. $500 in the middle of the Great Depression.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money." And there's also, you have to tell me why you're looking for him. I'm an information broker. Are you going to sell that? If we tell you that, are you going to sell that to somebody who pays for it? Yes.
That's our business.
And so these guys are about to pull out guns when all of a sudden there's probably 20 people working at typewriters and doing the various the work essential to making a newspaper run. And as these guys are reaching into their pockets for guns, every single one of them stops what they're doing and has their guns out pointed at them. As information brokers, you may realize that this is a delicate work. So we've grown accustomed to this sort of thing. It's just so beautiful. But those guys leave, and then it jumps back to 1930. And we're introduced to a couple of goofball thugs, one wearing a leather glove that he's doused in some kerosene and lit on fire, and it burns blue, and then he puts it out and demonstrates that that's great. And the other guy goes, "Oh, I want to try that," and then does it to himself and isn't stopped in time because the trick only works on leather gloves. Fool, that's a cloth glove. And so
Randy and Petco Picho or whatever his name is are busy getting ready for the party.
Is that who these two are?
That's who these two are.
Well, so in the effort of trying to get this thing, they get the flaming glove off of him. He kicks over the kerosene, spilling it. Drops the glove accidentally into the kerosene, and then doesn't realize that they've just set a building on fire. And they just, until it's too late, and then they run. Cut to a mouse tied with his arms and legs, well, all four legs, tied in corners on something. And you watch kind of graphically as this guy with a hammer in one strike smashes the mouse. And you're like, okay, what's this all about? What's with the animal torture? And then the mouse's blood, like we've seen at least 3 or 4 times at this point, goes into itself. And you see that this guy is very interested in what just happened. Apparently, this alchemist has just perfected a potion of immortality and has it hidden in beer bottles, in whiskey bottles, whatever, that he has in storage. And at just that moment, the fire that was set burns into his basement, destroying. And he's old and not strong enough to lift an entire crate of these, and can only save 2 bottles. So that happens, and he meanwhile, Luck and Firo are wandering the city when they see the
Luck and Firo just barely bought. Oh, not Luck. Sorry, not Luck. Firo and
somebody else. I thought it was Luck.
No. That's because he just barely got his hat, and it was Misa.
They go into a hat store. Okay, so Firo and Misa leave a hat store as Isaac and Miriam are going in, and they bump into each other, and Isaac demands an apology. "You better watch where you're going." And Miriam says the exact same tone, "You better watch where you're going," or something along those lines. And so they don't know each other yet in this scene, is established. Otherwise, they would have recognized, because yeah, Isaac and Miriam would not walk by some people that they know and not say something.
Exactly.
This is who they are.
Exactly.
But then what's his name? And then Firo sees the fire in the distance and says, "I want to go see if there's anything I can do to help." Like, don't go rubbernecking, what the subtitle reads. And so he goes, and then as he's approaching the crowd that's watching the fire, a woman's leaving the crowd and bumps into him, drops a button, and she says, "Sorry, I was looking for someone," and she had to run off. And so he grabs the button and runs after her, and then sees the old man protecting this crate with these two last bottles of beer, these two last whiskey bottles, with the potion to immortality in it, we assume. Um, and he's and he's being assaulted by four thugs who I think we've met before.
We just well, the episode starts off with a young girl at a dock trying to see her name is Eve Genoard, and she's standing by the Hudson River watching men drudge the bottom of it. They're just pulling stuff up. She is trying to find her lost brother Dallas. That's in 1932. Cut back to 1930, and that's
and Dallas was the name of the man that they were looking for in the that the mafiosos were looking for.
Yep. Dallas Genoard, and Dallas gets stopped by Luck at the beginning of that episode, and then it moves into that. But we also see in this episode we see Ladd's perspective on the train, and that's when he runs into
to play out too well for Dallas in the opening credit sequence, because we see him smiling and then we see him trapped in some kind of water tank.
Yeah,
and very concerned about his own well-being.
Well, yeah, he's a punk. Anyways, his sister is looking for him, anyways, we also kind of jumping back to the train a little bit. The Nick, the smaller guy of Jacuzzi's crew, he's still bigger than Nice and Jacuzzi. Gets told by
the
Nice,
smaller of the two. Yeah, he gets told by Nice. Okay,
so to take care of the dining car.
Yes. Well, Jacuzzi's running by, and he runs into the two of them, and says he needs to see something about the conductor. And it turns out Nice was following close behind, but not too close. And then this is where she tells Nick what you were saying.
And she says, "Take care of the dining car." And Nick, bless his heart, tries his hardest to figure out what she means by that. And he's like, maybe she means this. Or maybe she means this. Maybe she means this. And every time he thinks it, it's an incredible shot of just like Niece's face getting more and more intense as she's saying more and more intense things. Eventually, like, make sure nobody comes and bothers us while we're robbing the train. He's like, okay, I'll make sure nobody leaves the cart. You can count on me. And he pulls out his little knife. But one of Ladd's boys walks by. We should say earlier, Ladd is explaining what they're like. Ladd is super depressed because someone else got the better straw. And Ladd then gets happy because this woman who is at Ladd's side at all times, who Ladd has promised that he will kill her last, and she's happy because she's going to get killed by Ladd. Just, some crazy girl. She says, well, why don't you just go watch? And he's like, I'm an idiot. That's incredible. I can just go watch it all happen. Yes, that's great. Let me go do that. And he bursts out into the hall, and that's when he runs into Jacuzzi. And then Jacuzzi apologizes, goes off, and Ladd's like, wait a minute. I know that face. And he goes and sees a wanted poster for Jacuzzi.
Yes, with a $5,000 reward.
Which is quite a bit of money in that day and age. Yeah. I mean, it's a good amount of money this day and age, too. I'm not going to lie. Anyways.
But back then, that was a house.
And the guy, well, if you want to go ahead and live in Detroit, that's also a house. That was an
Know
odd
that.
face. That was an odd face for my computer to freeze on all of a sudden. You were like, for like
Yeah.
2 seconds. Anyways, Lad is just like, this ride is getting more and more interesting. I can't wait to see what happens before the night's out. And he goes off, and one of Lad's boys, the guy who won the draw, goes into the dining cart before Nick. Nick pulls out his knife, and
Yes.
he opens the door. Opens the door. Oh wait, well, so that happens at the end of the episode.
Oh no,
he opens the door.
Okay, so what happens is Lad's guy is in the middle of the dining room car. There's some ghosts who've entered in on the far side, and Nick has come in on the other side, and all three of them come in at the same time, and one by one, right after another, not paying attention to each other too much, shout their demands, which are on the floor, hands up, and nobody move. And Isaac and Miria obey all three. They're on the floor with their hands up and not moving.
Like, Isaac's like, wait a minute. Miria, what was the third one? And Miria's just like, he said, don't move. Like, kind of imitating how he spoke. Yeah. And he's like, oh, that's right. And they get back to just like on the ground, hands up. They're not moving.
But they're the only ones obeying all three.
Yeah. They're the only ones obeying all three. Like, an old man even just says, well, which one do you want us to do? And Nick at the end of the hallway is just like, he sees the heavily armed guys with Tommy guns and then, heavy pistols. And he's just like,
he brought a knife to a gunfight.
Click, puts it away. Don't mind me. And just kind of shuts the door.
And leaves. Yes.
And leaves. But anyways, so Firo is looking for this girl, Enos. It's the first time he's actually met her chronologically, because a button of her coat fell off, and it's a nice button, so he wants to give it back to her.
Yes.
And he comes across the old man with the bottles getting attacked by Dallas and his thugs. And Firo, being the good guy that he is, comes to the old man's rescue. One of the thugs rushes at him. Firo just one by one, he just decimates.
The first one, he just bobs his head a little bit, and the guy can't land a blow on him, and then gets his head butt to the nose and gets his face bashed in, or something. I think it might have been a punch.
I think it was a punch. I don't remember, but he hit the guy's on the ground.
The second guy, he tosses his head up in the air, then performs a body slam on him, knocking him out. And the next shot, he's got the hat back on. Oh,
third guy comes at him. He takes him out like he's nothing.
Yeah, which reminds me a little bit of Ninja Scroll. You remember the opening scene of Ninja Scroll where Jubei tosses up his rice ball, defeats the four assassins after him, and catches his rice ball?
When you said Ninja Scroll, the only scene that came to mind was the stone ninja killing all the other ninjas like they were nothing.
Yeah, no, that's not this. No, this is
Jubei
on the beach.
Oh, Ninja Scroll! Wow. Anyways, so he kicks the crap out of him, makes sure the old man's okay. The old man, is rude, being very, very, very protective of his cargo. Firo's like, man, that's really important to you, huh? Well, here, you might want to get out of here before these guys get back up. And then Firo goes off, looking for the woman again. Cut back to the old man later. He's bleeding out on the ground. Yeah. Enos is above him, and Enos sees the blood go back into him, and he gets back up and recognizes who she is. That's when it cuts back Dallas to the train, and we see Nick, and Nick's like, "Oh, hey, don't mind me," type thing, and just kind of shuts the door. But then it cuts to Jacuzzi. Jacuzzi's trying to find the. Wait, what?
No, don't worry about it. Go keep going.
Yeah. So Nick. So
Jacuzzi is trying to find the conductor.
Sorry. We just had one of those weird bits where it
I could hear you just fine, but your video wasn't playing. So, but we're not. Okay. Let's not bring attention to it.
Yeah. Anyways, Nick Jacuzzi is running down, and he gets to the conductor's office at the end of the train, and he finds the bodies of 2 dead conductors, and one of them was very, very brutalized. Like their arm is just gone. And he freaks out and says, "It's too late. The rail tracer's already here," and that's the end of episode 3.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So there's a lot more going on than we even talked about, and I mean, there's a scene where we find out like the police are investigating a number of bodies that they found more than a dozen bodies along the train tracks in the snow, and they assume we're all passengers from the flying pussyfoot, and yeah, and they find Lad still alive with his girlfriend, and who apparently is suicidal, and that's why she's with him.
Something along those lines. Have no idea why she's like that, but she's suicidal, and she knows that one day Lad is going to kill her, and that's why she's with him and why she's in love with him. And like there's a scene where they're dancing together, but she's just kind of hanging there limply in his arms and letting him do absolutely everything, like she's putty in his hands type thing.
Yeah. Even in the opening credits scene, she peeks her head around a door. She receives something from a courier on the train, and he doesn't even wait for her to be out of the way before throwing a dart into the back of the door.
Yeah.
And barely missing her. So, but no, yeah, they're still together, and he's got a bloody stump of an arm. It looks like he's just got forearm bones sticking out. So, and we don't know, and in the first 3 episodes, we don't know what happened. Not yet, anyway. But yeah, so first 3 episodes are jam-packed with lots of little tidbits that are just the start of some amazing stuff. Including finding out that the rail tracer is real. Having these immortals but because it plays with time, we don't know exactly when they became immortal and who is and who isn't yet. Not a full accounting of it yet, anyway. So we don't know if so there's just a lot. After the first 3 episodes, there's a lot of unanswered questions that the show promises to answer.
Yeah.
Now, as I recall, I think we talked about this at the time that Baccano, because so much was happening in it, it didn't do well when it was serialized. Like 1 episode a week, it was hard to follow. But once it became available to stream or to watch to binge on DVD, it's a show that you have to watch a lot of it in a row to really get it. Because there's just so many little things, so much going on.
But there's a ton going on.
Yeah. As made example by how many names they drop in the opening credits alone.
Yeah. But no, I adore this show. First time I watched it, it was like I watched it with a friend. Just all kind of not all at once. We had a couple of sessions, but it was just incredible. I love the show. I love the characters, the music, the animation, all of it. It's just so cool. And it's in a time period we don't really see a lot of anime in, you know? You know, Prohibition era America, you don't really see that very much.
Oh, that reminds me that there's a Prohibition America. Isn't 91 Days that time period too?
I think so, yeah. And we never finished that. We were watching it with a friend, but never be able to get back together with that friend. So,
but yeah, so it's not unique, but it is rare.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. And as we were saying before, this is written by the exact same person who did Durarara. So, and Durarara is another show that just tells multiple stories or the same story from multiple perspectives. So you get different perspectives each time and get a more full telling of the story as it progresses.
Yeah. Durarara is the biggest difference between the two is Durarara has more characters and is completely chronological. It doesn't have time jumps the way that it's not as what was the word they used? Anachronistic. Out of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so that's Baccano. I was looking it up online, and apparently, like, it's not easy to get a hold of. But if you do get a hold of it, I would even recommend if you're interested in it, checking out the manga or the light novels. It's just it's delightful. It's wonderful. I adore it.
Right.
So, anyways, that's it for Baccano. And for the final week for Americans in Anime, I mean, we record on Wednesdays, so yes, the next Wednesday, like we'll be recording on the 31st, but our episodes don't go up until Friday. So this next week's gonna be our last week of Americans in Anime. We decided, why not watch an anime where America's a character? So, and what do we decide to watch?
We're watching Hetalia Axis Powers. Forget what you learned in history class and imagine all the nations of the world are as guys and as an inappropriate reality show.
I've never watched more than a little bit of this, so I'm excited to see more of it. They're about 5 episodes a piece, so we'll probably do a lot. I mean, 5 minutes a piece. Yeah, episodes are about 5 minutes a piece, so we'll probably do a lot more than 3 episodes. Just to have enough content to talk about during the show.
It looks like Funimation has 27 episodes. That might be the full run of it.
Yeah. Well, also there's another site.
How many we're doing.
There's another site called Tubi.tv, and apparently it's a legal site. Like I discovered this because of because.moe that we talked about last week. But yeah. Tubi.tv, they are a legal free streaming site here in the States, and they have seasons 2 through 5 of Hetalia. So if we need more, we can go to there. But it's tubitv.com. My bad. It's not tubi.tv. It's tubitv.com. Anyways, we're gonna watch Hetalia for next week. Okay,
that's right.
All right, and that's it for 3 episodes in. Let's move on to recommendation of the week, which is my pick this week. And I picked a manga I discovered the other day. There's only 5 chapters of it so far. It's a manga called The Whimsical Cursed Sword. Okay. The artwork for it is reminiscent of Berserk or other seinen manga.
Okay.
But it's a comedy. It's a fantasy world where cell phones exist. Cell phones and laptops and the internet and all that stuff. So magic just kind of fallen by the wayside. Even the Demon King decided to go ahead and modernize, and he built a theme park and things like that. He's now a successful businessman instead of, the Demon King.
Okay.
But this guy who is trying to just live in day-to-day life, he comes home one day to find that his little sister had found this demon sword that she thinks is adorable, and it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And she's like, "Oh, it's just a regular sword. It's fine." And the brother's trying to get rid of it, and she won't have any of it. She throws a temper tantrum. Finally, he's like, "Fine, whatever. You can keep the sword." And she, that night, he grabs the sword, takes it from her because she's snuggling with it like a teddy bear in bed because she wants to go on adventures with this sword. He digs a hole in the mountain behind their house, puts it in, leaves it there. Next morning, he wakes up, and the sword has absorbed all the energy from the life forces, from all the plant life and everything around it for several miles, and has grown bigger than a mountain.
Oops.
The sword then, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying artwork seeing this massive sword. And the sword then shrieks down, sits down on a rock, and says, "Hey, yeah, I'm just a regular sword." And he's like, "Yeah." So it's a comedy. It's really funny.
Okay. Your description of it reminded me of a comic I saw where a skeleton in Santa Claus clothes gives a little girl a sword, and the parents are complaining like, "You can't give a child a sword. It's educational. What if she hurts herself?" Well, that'll be a very important lesson.
Yeah, I remember that. What's that from? Do you remember?
I don't know what it's from, but and anybody listening, if you can tell us what it's from, send us a tweet or message us.
Yeah,
leave a comment under. Reach out to us
on this episode. Yeah, just reach out to us. Let us know. If you can't give a shout out, it'll be very educational. Bless you. All right. So that's it for recommendation of the week. It's now time for our creator shout out.
All right. I'm going to give a shout out to a creator that I found on YouTube called Zygor Gaming.
Okay.
Now, I've shared some of his content with you. He did that hour-long deconstruction of the of Chrono Trigger that I shared with you a while
Yeah,
back.
I watched that, and I watched his Final Fantasy his it's like the complete story of, not really a deconstruction. It's just he kind of in the order of chronological events. This is the story of Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
So yeah.
So yeah, it was it was a great it was a great analysis piece, I
Mm-hmm.
thought, and I look forward to seeing more of his content. So
Yeah.
we're gonna link out to his follow him on Twitter, subscribe to him on YouTube. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
really great stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
Andrew and I have both been huge fans of Square's older work, and
Mm-hmm.
so he's got. I'm seeing here he's got Chrono Trigger, the original Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy VI, a handful of game reviews, including Chrono Trigger, Destiny of an Emperor, Chaos Seed. Just a lot of great content is here that he's got. So definitely subscribe and uh,
Yeah. Do
take a
it.
look. Take a
Do it.
look.
It's great. Yeah, it's like the content's long, but it's educational and it's great. And I like having content like that kind of playing in the background while I'm working on other things. Anyways, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening in. If you listened on YouTube, please feel free to like this episode and subscribe to our channel. If you like what we do and want to support us, please share our channel with your friends. Where can they find us on social media?
Our site, WhitakerWeekly.com, currently has links to our Facebook page, Twitter account, and YouTube channel. We encourage all our listeners to follow us on the social media platform of their preference, and if there's one we're not on yet, please reach out to us on one of the ones we mentioned. We'll broaden our scope to include you.
All right. Well, that's it for another episode. I've been Andrew,
I've been Lee.
and this has been Whitaker Weekly. You guys have a great week.